Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You can start, Sushma Mataji.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In continuation of reading the book Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, it was in 1939 that Abhay wrote Introduction to Gita Upanishad. It was a short piece, but it signaled his intention to take on the task of one day translating Bhagavad Gita into English with commentary. Of course, there were already many commentaries in English, but most of them had been written by impersonalists or others who had not delivered the original spirit of the Gita, the spirit of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, hearing Bhagavad Gita directly from Lord Krishna. Abhay knew, however, that he could present Bhagavad Gita in the proper spirit by writing an English commentary based on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the disciplic succession. So he began whenever he could make time, he would write. Although a strict grammarian could find fault in his English composition, his meaning was always clear. In his introduction, Abhay reflected on the time when a young schoolboy he had attended a lecture, Vidyaratna, the jewel of education. The theme of the lecture had been that God does not exist and could not exist. If there were God, he would certainly have appeared on earth to put an end to all religious rivalry. But since God had not obliged man in this way, we should banish all thought of his existence from our minds. The audience, Abhay explained, consisting only of so many young boys, did not delve deeply into the subject matter of the lecture, yet the majority, impressed by the arguments, carried away lofty ideas of godlessness and thus became agonist at home. Abhay had not been satisfied with the agonistic conclusion, because I had been trained by my father to be engaged in the worship of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. But as a result of Vidyaratna lecture, I was experiencing some mental conflicts between agnosticism and the existence of Godhead. Later, having heard from his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Abhay understood that the personality of Godhead exists in every sphere of activity. But we do not have the eyes to see him. Abhay wrote, even if the Lord personally manifests himself on the earth, the quarreling mundaners will not stop their fighting and look upon Godhead or his representative due to ignorance. This is the birthright of the individual soul by the grace of God. Bhagavad Gita is the true jewel of education, and in the Gita, Lord Krishna declares to the fighting people on earth, here I am, do not quarrel. The agnostic who had spoken of the jewel of education had been blinded by the jewel and therefore could not see and appreciate the personality of Godhead. Thus he had gone on to convince others to become so-called jewels also. Following his spiritual master, Abhay displayed an aggressive spirit for confronting all opponents of pure theism. In responding to his spiritual master's order to develop into an English preacher, Abhay was not simply making neutral scholarly presentations. He was willing and ready to fight, whether against modern agnostics or Vaishnavism's old traditional enemy, Mayavad impersonalism. Although few scholars thought the way of surrender to Lord Krishna has exposed in Bhagavad Gita, almost all respected Bhagavad Gita as presenting the essence of all knowledge. The Gita therefore was a perfect vehicle for confronting those who represented God and religion. The Gita was a challenge to the agnostics, apotheistics, anthropomorphists, impersonalists, henotheisists, pantheists, and absolute monists. Although there were already more than 600 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, they had been written by persons with an inner hatred for the personality of Godhead, and therefore they were imperfect. Such envious persons, Abhay wrote, have no entrance into the real meaning of Bhagavad Gita, inasmuch as a fly cannot enter into the covered jar of honey. Abhay described Indian culture as an almost impassable ocean due to its depth of thought and apparent mixtures of conclusions. But in this book, Abhay declared, I will establish that Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead by referring to the available records of scriptures, which are the recorded history of Indian culture and thought. The sannyasis at 7 Banerjee Lane were impressed by the scope of Abhay's thought and intentions, as it was customary to award a title to an especially worthy Vaishnava according to his qualities. Bhakti Saranga Goswami wanted to confer upon Abhay the title Bhakti Siddhanta. Sridhar Maharaj, however, thought it inappropriate to give Abhay the same title as their spiritual master, and he asked that Abhay's title be changed to Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti meaning devotion and Vedanta meaning the end of knowledge. Abhay was grateful. The title combined the devotion of religion with the scholarship of the most rigorous philosophy as passed down by the scholarly followers of Lord Chaitanya. He appreciated the sincere gesture of his god brothers and accepted the title as a further commitment to his spiritual path of preaching Krishna consciousness. Abhay continued regularly associating with Sridhar Maharaj and discussing with him Srimad Bhagavatam. Abhay encouraged him to preach widely, although Sridhar Maharaj was admittedly more the scholar and rather shy about going out and preaching. On several occasions, Abhay tried to convince Sridhar Maharaj to go with him and charge Gandhi and Nehru as to why they weren't following the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Another fruit of this spiritual association at 7 Banerjee Lane was a book called Prapanna Jivanmrita, compiled by Sridhar Maharaj, a collection of verses from various Vaishnava scriptures, including excerpts from the works of Rupa Goswami. It was divided into 6 chapters according to the 6 divisions of surrender. Abhay, along with sannyasis of the Devananda Saraswati Mutt, financed the publication. Thus, it was published as a joint effort by friends. September 3rd. You want me to stop here, Mataji? Yeah. Okay. So I stop here for today's reading, and we see how Srila Prabhupada's journey begins with the thought and his determination and his further plan of to proceed, how to make the world realize about God. And at the same time, when there were groups existing which were completely against the movement, what Srila Prabhupada was planning to do so. However, we also see that Srila Prabhupada had a very clear and distinct kind of an clear vision what he wanted to do to bring awareness among the people about the knowledge of God. So this shows that his vision was already has taken its kind of a fruitive activity, kind of writing the scriptures, where he started with the Bhagavad Gita, realizing that the existing commentaries which were existed at that time were not to the fullest mark. So this we can see that Srila Prabhupada, even though at that moment he was not into a complete sannyas or complete renounced or completely dedicated, yet he was very his knowledge with related to the spiritualism has been so much so fruitified that he was already convinced and had a clarity of the progress of developing the and sharing the knowledge of existence of God. So it was really beautiful and to see how Srila Prabhupada initiated his journey through this. Let's go for